All right, so first of all, thank you for coming and sorry for the wait. I wanted to talk a little bit about a small practice project that I made. I call it Star Bastion. This talk is just a small post-mortem of an even smaller project. That's how I call it. So before I get into that, you may as well know who I am and why am I saying this, right? So my actual name is not Bob. My mother did not choose that. That's all me. Roberto, that's my actual name. Born in Spain 30 years ago. I've got over 10 years of experience in video games on over 3 roles. I've got QA experience, project management experience, and now game design. And for the last 2 years, I've been learning about indie game development on my own. I'm currently working as a game designer in Ubisoft Blue Byte in the Settlers Online project. And if you're curious about what I've done, you can find my website over there. bobmoratti.com is not really that hard to remember, but it's also on my business card. If I haven't given one to you, just come and see me later, and I will give you one. So, a few examples of games that I have worked on. Maybe you will recognize a few of these. Some of these as testers, some of these as PM or assistant producer and game design. So let's talk about the project itself. So I decided to take, in this case, Oliver's advice about when you want to learn a project. It's not really such a good idea to make one bigger project because it's much more likely to never see the light. And even if it does, you will spend so much time on the development that by the time you finish, you will probably have learned things that you may have already applied in the beginning. So many small projects is definitely the way to go if you're looking into learn game development. So in this case, how do we make a practice project? The basic idea is that you scope extremely small. So it's something that should be developed in less than 1 month. And in order to do that, the best guideline to say, or the best measurement that you can get, is that the play session should be, from start to finish, 15 minutes or less. Designing a good and an original game, if you're feeling like it and if you already have an idea, may be good. But if you don't, it may unnecessarily elongate the development time. So in this case, if you have an arcade project or an old game that you may want to remake, that's also acceptable. It's fine. So that's what I did. I chose the classic game Star Castle. It's an arcade game, really very simple premise. You've got an enemy that is surrounded by shields, and you have a ship that you can move around and shoot these shields in order to get to the core. That's it. That's the whole game. So you are always competing for the highest score. That's as many arcade titles before that. And I thought, yeah, okay, let's give this a try. My weapon of choice is Game Maker Studio because it's the tool that I'm most familiar with, but it's my personal preference, and I mean, I do encourage people to use that as well to learn. It's they may actually be more comfortable using Unity or Unreal Engine or Construct 2, whatever you name it. If you feel comfortable with already a tool, just use that instead. I released it as pay what you want in itch.io, and I made a whopping 17 euros. So, thank you. I can retire now. And only, I mean, from those 17 euros, only 11 came from my mom. So, success overall. Anyway, moving on. What's the first thing I learned about this game? When I started developing the game, I started prototyping it, and I made like the very basic spaceship movement, shooting mechanic, the enemy and such. But eventually, of course, as it happens when you program a game from scratch, you get stuck. And I got stuck, of course. I couldn't really, in this case, make the shields rotate around the core. And I just couldn't really figure out exactly how it happened. I'm pretty sure that most of you will look at me and say, but that's so easy, you noob. You're right, it is. But I didn't know back then. So I started researching, and that's all right. But I started seeing that it was taking me longer than it should be. So I just say, all right, look at that, fuck it. I'm just gonna go to the forums, I'm gonna go to the Facebook groups that I'm on, and I'm just gonna post a question there. And I did. And in my case, I just tried on a Facebook group that I'm part of, the Game Maker users group. And within minutes, I think it was maybe like 7 minutes after, I already had a reply like, here's your problem. You're supposed to use a for loop, you're supposed to use this function, and that. And I was like, okay, I had no idea. You just saved me hours and hours of research. Really fast reply, really friendly reply. And the first thing that I have to tell you all is the community is always willing to help. So there is no such thing as a stupid question. Just feel free to join the forum of choice, your tool of choice, community, Reddit, whatever. Just drop a question there. Someone will reply, no matter what your what your question is. So do not hesitate to resort to help, right? This is how the prototype build looks, as you can see. Can everyone see it from here? Yes? So this is how the prototype build looks. So you have the ship movement, you have, it shoots stuff, you've got the shields around and they explode. So yeah, it's all right. I mean, that was the basic core of the gameplay. That's how it is, the main loop. From here on, all it needed were elements. So the prototype, the very core of the game, is basically something that you can define with a single sentence. In this case, shoot the shields in order to get to the enemy core. Period. That's it. From here on, you can start adding layers of complexity in order to make it feel more like a completed game. I was remembering my premise of keeping it simple and keeping the scope to the minimum. But yeah, you always, when you start adding layers of complexity to your game, you have to always beware the game developer's worst nightmare, which is the feature creep. Any of you have been victims of a feature creep? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, too many. The feature creep for everybody has. I mean, that's the thing. The feature creep is basically that feeling that is like, oh, you know what? You know what this game needs? Like colors. And you know what that is need? It needs like high fidelity music or online multiplayer. Do not listen to that guy. He's most of the time wrong. So, you know who the worst enemy of the feature creep is? How you beat it? Project management. It's true. So the project manager, or in this case you, because you're making your own project, is that make sure that you manage your project in order to avoid the feature creep. So no matter how small the team is, no matter how little you're scoping, you will always need a project management tool. Because if you don't, the feature creep will come. Make sure that you always use a project management tool. I personally have researched a few, and I've seen a bunch of them. They're all free to use, but here are a few recommendations that I'm going to drop by later, because I forgot I was another slide. When you manage a project with a tool, you will get better track of your development time. You will see visible progress. You will see that you are actually making, you see your pile of features that you have planned, and they get smaller and smaller all the time. And that's something that kind of motivates you, like, oh, I'm close to finishing it finally. But yeah, I have a strong suggestion that I have to make. This may not apply to every project, but this is something that I found particularly useful. Redline those features that you want to have the game before you start developing it. So once you have the prototype, once you have the core, just pick a handful of features that you want for the game to have and leave it there. Because you know what happens if you don't? Feature creep. Make sure this doesn't happen. Right. Trello is by far the most popular one. It's not particularly my favorite, but it's really popular. You just have your board, you organize with your, whichever you want to feel, to be honest. It's really open for kind of all projects. The one that I use for this project in particular is Fabro, which is kind of like Trello, but it had two features that I was missing in Trello. One is the backlog feature, and the other one is that you can have like several boards instead of just one, which is Trello. But just recently, I discovered a third option that has been in open beta. It's been released in open beta recently. It's called Hack and Plan, and it's especially designed for game development. So this is something that I didn't know about, and everyone can use it. It's free. It has just the same features that Trello and Fabro has, but you can separate the tasks by art, design, programming, or marketing even. You can assign deadlines to it. You can follow up the progress. You have like a some sort of backtracking function there. So it's really nice. I mean, I look forward to try it out properly, because at the moment I've only, sorry, I've only been using it for, I don't know, a few hours, not much. But I do encourage anyone who wants to get into project management on their own little stuff, give that a look, because it looks promising. Right. Third lesson, I was progressing smoothly with the game. I tried to stay true to the visual side, you know, these vectorial graphics as the Vectrex used to handle. In order to do the text, I use a free font from, I think it was dafont.com or something like that. You can find a lot of free resources there that you can just use for commercial license, even just credit it there and that's it. I wanted to do a scanline effect to give it like a proper, more arcade feeling to the game. But it turns out that it was a little more difficult to implement than I originally anticipated, you know? I started researching and I started trying out different methods to make that work in my game. And I wasted 3 whole days on that. 3 days. And I didn't make it, only to find out that I was just not ready for that. Because shaders are a scary and difficult territory to venture in, and I just was not ready for it. So I decided maybe I should just check the asset store to see what I get. And I found this. A retro shader collection by Gimpy Software, which is $1. $1. It's $1, and it saved me weeks of work for $1, because it was not just research, it was research, implementation, bug fixing, understanding, because normally when a normal person would take 3 days to understand something, I would need 3 weeks. That's how it worked. So just remember that a developer just like you has made that for you. They have invested their time, so you don't have to. And I understand that some people may think, yeah, but if I kind of used it, then that's no longer my own project. You know, that's no longer my thing, because I cheated. It's a matter of pride, and it's wrong. You should not let pride get in the way of that. So even though you feel like it, someone has done that, has sold it to you. If you buy it, you support him to keep doing stuff, to help others, even yourself. You should not neglect these resources. They are there for that. So please do not let a matter of pride get in the way. All right, moving on. The game was shaping up nicely, but it was still very bland. So this is the point of the project where I realized that there's a lot more than just basic core gameplay to see that the game is fun or exciting or just boring. It needed a massive boost on the game's what is called the game's feeling, you know? But the small details, so all that the game was missing, was actually going to give it like the full boost that it needed. You should never also neglect the small details. They can actually make a difference between a really boring looking project and an interesting project, just like that. I mean, it's not the only factor, of course. If a game is boring to play, no matter how many flashlights or how many explosions you put in, it's still going to be a boring game. But if it's a fun game, it could always use more explosions, generally. No, I'm kidding. It, of course, applies to any kind of project. So yeah, this is how the final build looked compared to the previous one. It's a little harder to see, but yeah, in case you forgot about how the first one looked. You see the differences, right? I mean, in this screen, because the background is a little bit too white, it's not very easy to see, but the right side, the screen also has some sort of background that is slowly scrolling. That made the scanline effect and the filter a lot more noticeable, but because before you could only see that, and the scanline effect would make it, it's not very much appreciated, you know, it was that. So other than that, I started adding things like, for example, that every time the ship shot the enemy or something, it would play like a randomized variation of the same sound. It always was the same sound, but pitching it slightly, it no longer made it sound so repetitive. Instead of giving like, it would be like, it was different. So it kind of made it a bit more interesting to hear, less boring. Added power-ups, added explosion sprites, because why not? Added a screen shake effect. I'm not saying this is the best game ever, but it's definitely my best game ever. I'm really proud of it for now. And it did make a difference. It kind of felt like, oh my God, I'm getting somewhere. This is something that I can get myself playing for a while. Lesson 5, playtest, playtest, playtest. There's no need for me to explain this. So whenever you do anything, get as many people as you can to playtest your game. No matter if it's your wife, your cousin, your dog, whatever, just make them playtest your game. So they will always give you the bits of feedback that you are missing in order to see what's wrong with your game, because you may be too biased with your own game to do that. In my case, when my wife tried the game, it says the screen shake is too frequent and it's too violent. It's making me sick. Your game sucks. So I changed it. I changed it, and ever since, I noticed that she was right. I mean, having too much of a frequent screen shake, it would make some people not feel right or comfortable playing that game, which is something that we do not want as game developers. So always listen to the feedback. There's always the kind of people that will say, it's okay, it's a nice game. Yeah, okay, but what do you like? You know, things. Those kind of feedback are the ones that you can not use. But there's always someone that will give you like the little piece of information that will definitely help you out with your development. The more feedback you get, the more likely you will be able to find useful information. So get a lot of people to play your game. Get a lot of people to give you feedback to see what's wrong, what's right with it. And this is it for my presentation. If you have any questions, I will take it now. Yes?
In addition to your playlisting, one thing I advise everybody, don't talk too much during a playlist. If you have a new player sit in front of the game and see how they react. Because sometimes they will look at the game and be like, what the fuck is going on? That means your game doesn't describe itself so well.
Right. So what Matthias said for people watching the video is that do not talk too much when people are playtesting your game. If their players are playing your game and they are saying, what the hell is going on here? It means that you're not doing very well conveying your message to the game, which is absolutely correct. But that is also in itself valuable feedback. So that means that you have to change that. Any more questions? Yes?
Is there anything I need to know about platforms like Itch.io? Do you just put in there your credit card and people can donate or something?
It's something like that. The question was, if you're making your account in Itch.io, then how do you get your money, right? Something like that? Yeah. It's, in my case, what I did was I linked my PayPal account. But this is a PayPal account that they cannot see. So they just do the transaction via Itch.io. And they say, I want to pay that, because I just put it, pay what you want. And later on, it gets processed by PayPal, and what you get is basically the whole money that was sent. Itch.io does not really take a percentage of that, unless you want to. There is an option if you want to support Itch.io, you toggle it, and then part of your benefits will go to Itch.io, which is a really nice thing. More questions? No more questions. All right. If you have any further questions, then you can always find me here. Thank you very much for being there. So hope that you enjoyed it, and as long as I helped someone with it. Thanks very much.
You later when it's finished. So what I want to talk about today is some kind of recap of what game jams are for, and then I will show you my latest project and tell you a bit about the process of development and how I achieved this kind of quality. You will see it. So game jams. What are game jams? You probably might know it, but some of you, I heard, are relatively new to game development. So there are small events. You can create some kind of prototypes of yourself or in a group in commonly 2 to 3 days. It depends on the game jam you are participating in. And I call it somehow game development in a nutshell. So you have short time period to learn things about programming, music, assets creation, and game design, project management, that kind. And I personally think it's a great opportunity to create fast prototypes. And you might ask yourself, why should I participate in a game jam? And there are several points I found on several sites. So These are 7 points. The first one is you will improve your management skills. So as Bob also told you, you need project management skills somehow. And before starting in industry directly and getting yourself some experience, you might consider starting gaining some personal experience during game jams, and you will learn, for example, how to estimate the tasks and prioritize them, and you will also learn more to speed up your decisions and avoiding the creep somehow, and you will also try out new different tools and familiarize yourself with them. And prototyping skills are very important, especially when you are in the industry and you don't want to waste too much time on creating a prototype. So making a small game during the weekend would be a good opportunity to learn that. And the first thing you have to do is you have to consider you will make a game that should be playable, and everything else should be excluded for the second part. When you are ready with the core gameplay. So music, art, sound and polishing are some kind of things. I have to learn that too, so I also only start with polishing directly without creating the core gameplay, but that's a different story. The next point is very important for me, so it's the experimental part, and you can try new things you commonly can't in industry jobs. For example, so you have your deadlines, you have your you're prioritizing things you have to do for your company, and the best things about trying new things is also you will have create some strange bugs that you normally wouldn't have considered into your development, and I call them happy accidents. They are commonly maybe also called this way, and in my game I have a lot of happy accidents. You will see them later. Maybe we will not consider them. Think I have added them by thinking about the game design, but not. And the next point will be what should I do with this prototype? And there are a lot of game jam prototypes which are very successful and also very gaining a lot of money on Steam, for example, maybe Titan Souls, some kind of this could be an example for that. And the learnings you're taking from game jams is also some kind of thing you should consider. Networking and teamwork, this is something I should learn. This is new because I make commonly projects alone at home because of equipment problems. And a good thing when you participate in game jams is that you can change your expertise. When you are a game designer, you can try to make sound design, for example. You have no risk for it. And when you're a programmer, you can try to make art. So you will also gain new experiences with it's possible. I saw that. Here's some skeptical faces. I've also seen it in my field of expertise. So I also some kind of that. I create sound, and this for games I commonly didn't make sounds for. So my expertise field raises a bit by that. And here's a graph of the process of my games. I participated in Ludum Dare 27 to 31 and made a short break, and the last one is 36, and the game I will presenting is not inside the chart because the rating feature got disabled. And as you can see, by experience, my games I have focused on different aspects of the game jams, and they are getting better somehow. So it's not always a waste of time, and the experience you get from and the feedback you get from the developer and from the players is also very important for yourself. And if you want to participate in a game jam, you don't have to wait because there are a lot of them going on now. So you can choose the one you are most comfortable with, and the big ones, the global game jam is annual, and the Ludum Dare will be the next on December, and these are the game jams which have the most media coverage. So if you also have, if you did make games and you don't have the money for advertisement, so you can choose this and use Twitter and social media and such, and use a hype wave around this a bit to gain more views. Okay, now let's see what the game looks like I was talking about. I hope this works. The sound. The first game jams I made them with 2D, and the last two ones I started to create 3D art and with Unity. And yeah, the quality of my expertise changed during this process of creating 2D games and 3D games. So at first I had a lot of struggles with art. And finding pixel artists, I had problems with that, so I had to make my own development art. So switching to 3D is extremely good because I found this plugin, this 3D voxel, picavoxel plugin, and yeah, you can just build the blocks out of your mind, and you have a lot of freedom to yeah, create small worlds on that. And as you can see, yeah, this game is made with voxels. And the art was yeah, seen by the most players as the best part of the game. So game design-wise, I also I used a lot of experimentation here. As you can see, the cube, and this was one of the happy accidents. So I forgot to disable the light source, but it looks like that it merged with the wall, and therefore I got a new idea to make this a new mechanic to let the player see that different objects can merge later on when I continue with this prototype. So the reference of this game was, you may know the film Prometheus. There was a cutscene at the beginning where some kind of alien drank a liquid and dissolves into the water, and then some kind the whole fauna and flora begins to flourish. So this was some kind of experimentation to see how can I achieve a different gameplay by using three different areas in the game where I can yeah, activate some kind of plants, water, and animal life, and using it as an abstract gameplay. And as you can see, it is here. This one, for example, is for the water. And I also wanted to make the rooms, game design-wise, to feel like this element I was aiming at. So you see there was some kind of fluid movement, and the player was yeah, has to use patience and such that. And the second room, as you can see, is more like the revival of the plants. As you can see, I've tried to use some kind of the environment and give it a look like a plant. Yeah, green, obviously, but as you can see, these green lines were some kind of experiment to see if you can make some kind of tutorial and show the player the way where I can go through the maze. The maze symbolizes some kind of roots of the plant. So there's a lot of thinking behind the game design, and it worked very well. The players recognized the way of it very fast, and you didn't need a tutorial to show them how to use the game and how to feel about where the next steps are. Problems during development, yeah, the plugins, as far as the next step, the time management. As for the plugins, they were not working very well, and sometimes I had to remodel a whole area, and this took yeah, most of the time. So if you're struggling, you try to find ways to achieve your goals, and when you don't yeah, when you don't find a way to recreate some kind of experience or some kind of object you had lost, so you will get more creative with faking things. So the cube in the beginning, the black cube, is just an optical cube. So I modeled this 3 times, and then it got lost again, and then I just used the common alpha wall and just some kind of colliders to fake the colliding actions. So this is also something you can learn from game jams, as mentioned. And as for the game design itself, for the movement is also not planned in the development, but it is some kind of a problem Unity had with the standard prefab. So before I wanted to invest 2 to 6 hours to adjust the movement, I just let the movement as it is, and I created the levels around the movement. So also this is something I noticed the players had. This is very uncommon. So you can jump very high. Normally the players cannot jump very high but walk fast. But it also gave a special experience I wasn't aiming at, but I found this very interesting. So this is a huge advantage of using experimental design, and just stick with the decision you made. If you make some errors, just let them be and continue with the work, because the whole project should be finished, and don't concentrate on too much details. So as you can see here, the lights are changing, the environment is changing. This is just simple lighting sources which will be activated. At first I wanted to make them animated like wires to go up, but this took too much time. So this simple trick just to activate the lightings is also something you will learn and during this fast prototyping phase. And yeah, we are going to the end. As mentioned, yeah, the art is something the most players liked much about the gameplay, and it's always hard. And we also said we need a lot of playtesters, but on game jams you will not have playtesters. Only after the jam we will have this rating phase and such thing. And it's also very great to get feedback and to learn about your games and to present them and see how they will be developed later on into full games. Okay, thank you. Questions?
How many people were on your team?
I was the only one.
Ah, okay.
So I mentioned that I don't have an artist, so I have to learn everything myself.
Okay.
So.
This was totally from scratch, this project?
Yeah, I used some plugins with visual scripting, so I put everything together and used the standard formula, but just to polish it up a bit to make it fake like it's something else. So.
It was Unity or?
It was in Unity, yeah. Okay.
How long did you work on that?
1.5 days, so everything is fine. This is also what I said. You can speed up and make your prototype in less time, and you have no risk, so it's just a weekend. Yeah.
Where can I get it, and does it have sound?
It has sound, yeah. I borrowed the sound, and there are a lot of free sources with the Creative Commons agreement. So I used a lot of research to find the right sounds, and I can give you the download link. But because this is part of the experience, so if you go into the challenge, it will be more. The music will change into more action, so you get pumped up. This was also a great feedback from players. They said, "Oh, the music is changing now. I'm pumped up," and they fail and fail and fail, but the music is pushing them forward. So you can also see this game design choices to use different music styles and give the player some kind of motivation. Okay. Another question? No? Okay. You have one?
Yeah, where did you get the sound?
From Newgrounds. Yeah.
How many game jams have you done?
7 and a lot of side projects. So there are, I don't know, prototype-wise I have 25 or something like that. A lot of experiences inside. So this is the last one I can say with the most experience I can say. Okay. Thanks.